In this module, we're going to learn about composables, and composables are one of the most exciting features to come with Vue 3 and the Composition API. But what is a composable? Well, you can think of composables as the Composition API's equivalent of Mixins from the Options API, although with a lot of added benefits. They allow us to extract out reactive data and methods and keep them separate from any particular component, so that we can easily reuse those reactive data and methods across multiple components without having to duplicate code. So we have an example here of some code from a Vue component using the Composition API, and we have some code related to a username here. So we have a username data ref for storing a username, and then we have a function for updating that username. So let's say we want to reuse this username ref and this update username method on multiple components. Then we can just extract these out into a composable like this. And a composable is basically just a function, and we can paste all of our reactive data and methods, watches, computed properties, etc. into this function, and then return the stuff from this composable that we want to make available. And we can then import this composable into any component and then use destructuring to extract the things that we want. In this case, the username data ref and the update username function. And we can then use these in that component. And if you want to learn more detail about the benefits of composables over Mixins, then you can jump to this article on vueschool.io. What is a Vue.js composable? And I'll add the link to the lecture. But in brief, the main benefits of composables over Mixins is, first of all, they make it completely clear where all of our data and methods, etc. are coming from. So if we look at this example from the Options API here, we have a component which is importing 3 different Mixins, and then we're using a data property called site from one of these Mixins. But from looking at this code, it's not obvious where this site property is coming from, without having to open up these Mixins and look through the files. Whereas with composables, we always know exactly where our data is coming from. You can see in this Composition API example, we're importing 3 different composables here, and we're grabbing a name property from one of them. And we can clearly see that this is coming from the use product composable. So composables make it much clearer where everything is coming from. Composables also reduce the risk of naming collisions. So again, we have an Options API example here, which is pulling in 3 different Mixins. Now, if all of these Mixins have a data property called name, and then we use that in our component, then it's only going to grab the name property from the last Mixin, which we've imported. And the name properties in the other 2 Mixins will be completely ignored. Composables also make it easy for us to safeguard our reactive data. In other words, make the data properties in our data objects read-only from outside of the Mixin, so that we can only actually change the data within the Mixin. So we can't do that with Mixins. But with composables, when we return the stuff that we want to expose from the composable, we can expose our values as read-only, so that they can't be changed from outside of the composable, only from a method which is inside the composable. And the last benefit of composables is that we can actually use them as a global state management system. So we can effectively create a composable store with a bunch of different data and methods. And when we change the data properties in that store, they will always be up to date on all of the different components in our app, whereas we can't do that with Mixins. If we try to do that with Mixins, then the data will always be reset for every component in which we use that Mixin. Whereas with composables, we can easily create a state management store where when the data changes, we will always see the changes to that data reflected in all of the components which are using that composable. And if you don't know what state management is, then don't worry, because we're going to be covering that in the next module. But these are some of the main benefits of composables over Mixins. This clip was taken from my full course Vue 3 Composition API with Pinia and Vite. If you're familiar with Vue 2 and the Options API, this course will teach you everything you need to know to switch over to the Composition API. Grab the full course with my discount at dannys.link/compositionapi, or you can watch almost half of the content for free here on YouTube, and I'll put that up here. And if that's not what you're seeing right now, then make sure you subscribe and click the bell so you don't miss that.